So have you actually seen a Bigfoot?
Many, many times before. I know exactly what you're going to say, and that's why I'm willing to show you my Bigfoot notes. Look, right here, Wednesday the 17th, saw Bigfoot running through the forest. On the 22nd, Bigfoot crossing the road near Minsterley petrol station. And just last week, walking a Labrador. And I even made an extra note, much too big to be a human dog walker. So physically, scientifically speaking, it is possible for a couple of these to be mistaken identity, but it's physically also impossible for them all to be wrong. So I've got science and statistics on my side. Case closed, my friend. Case closed. Hi. A couple of years ago, I made a YouTube video, an old school book review about the BookTok sensation, the self-published phenomenon that is Ice Planet Barbarians. Hilarity ensued. I dressed up as a horny blue alien, and YouTube age-restricted the video because I think I was just too sexy for the youngsters. And then everybody just moved on with their lives. The erotic monster romance craze was over. Or so I thought. My naive assumption was that Ice Planet Barbarians and its 21 sequels, yes, 21, including such classics as Ice Planet Holiday and The Barbarian Before Christmas, was nothing more than a trending joke nestled within serious mainstream publishing. But I was wrong. At least I was wrong about that novelty label. It turns out that Ice Planet Barbarians was just the tip of the spear. There's a whole thing happening that I certainly don't fully understand, and I don't even know what to call it. So I had to dive deeper into this erotic monster mash. Abduction, seduction, sexy Stockholm syndrome, Bigfoot porn. I gasp and my knees get weak, so I have to cling on to one of his horns again. His hips settle between mine, and I realise again just how big his equipment is. Ah, look down here. Not that you needed any more concrete evidence, but that is a genuine Bigfoot footprint. And this is one of the best places in the whole world to see them. I see them all the time.
Isn't that just your boot print?
They've started wearing boots. Interesting. We are essentially talking about having sex with an animal or something non-human. Don't look at me like that. You clicked on a video called Bigfoot porn, which we will get to, I promise. Now, we all know that the internet is 99.6% pornography. So we don't have to look too far to find images and footage of people dressed as animals, playing naked Twister with animals, and sticking things where they really shouldn't be sticking things. Basically, any combination of someone's genitals and megafauna that you can think of, there'll be a porno about it. Trust me, I've looked for research purposes. Technically, we're discussing teratophilia, meaning monster love. Now, I don't know why the ancient Greeks needed a specific word for that. I'm not judging. As with anything to do with the foundations of speculative fiction, there are cases going back to the dawn of storytelling itself. More recent literary history has key examples of the animal husbandry tale, like Beauty and the Beast, but the real action started to warm up a couple of hundred years ago. Ooh, I moan. It reminds me of the time I had a rabbit vibrator and it worked my at the same time as my asshole. As horror and other genres and erotica started to refine their identity, it was inevitable that there would be a crossing of the streams. Dracula being the best example of a monstrous character that was dangerous but also alluring. Somehow horror sits quite comfortably next to lust, sex and the erotic. I think it's the marriage of the taboos. It appeals to people looking for extremes. And for a few decades, this strange intertwining stayed over there in the horror, the gothic, the supernatural, weird fiction department. Science fiction was always a lot colder, certainly behind the curve when it came to titillation. Obviously, we're all very familiar with Sluts in Space and Crash Hard-On now, but attempts at SF raunchiness before the 1960s was mainly aimed at teenage boys. Lots of cover artwork featuring scantily clad women that had nothing or very little to do with the actual plot. There was very little Rogering going on. She caught the girth of his fat in her hands and drew it towards her body, increasing the area of nerve endings which were being stimulated. The T-Rex seemed to appreciate the gesture. What's going on? The male gaze was always there, and the new wave explored sexuality in a fresh and more profound way. And the Europeans and Japanese were always more adventurous in their erotic escapades than the prudish Americans. It wasn't until the spread of social media that we got an eruption of things like, well, Mounted by the Minotaur and I don't care if my best friend's mum is a Sasquatch, she's hot and I'm taking a shower with her. The one thing that he didn't move was his penis. He didn't move it behind the tree because it was too long. Hello. I think it's pretty clear that we have enormous fun making these videos, but they do cost some money and a lot of time to create. You can of course watch all the videos for free on YouTube, but if you would like to support the channel, you can use Buy Me a Coffee, which is an online tipping service. You can head on over to the merch store. Unfortunately, all the Eskimo porn has sold out, but we do have t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and socks. Do we have socks? Oh, Bigfoot porn merch is on the way. It may already be on there, just go and check. Or you can actually join the cult on Patreon, where you gain access to our exclusive Discord server that hosts the best reading club in the galaxy, and you get the podcast Radio Death Cult, which is me walking around in the woods talking mostly nonsense. Links to all those lovely things in the description. Thank you so much. Do you hear anything?
I don't know what I'm supposed to be hearing. What were we meant to be?
Yeah, I know what's happening. It knows you're here and it just doesn't trust you. Whenever I do it on my own, they communicate with me. Yeah, you're ruining it. The target audience for this kind of thing is, very generally speaking of course, heterosexual women who have traditionally been underserved when it comes to erotica. Now, I'm clearly not an expert on what women seek out for carnal entertainment. That would be weird. But evidently, there has always been a hunger for this kind of stimulation. Heterosexual men have had the whole top shelf of magazines to themselves for decades. Pretty much every single village shop and petrol station in the country is well stocked with jazz mags. Yes, mate, pump number 7, please. A packet of chewing gum and can I get a Playboy, a Barely Legal and a Big and Bouncy, please? Erotic literature aimed at women is a much more subtle affair. Not prudish, not sheltered, just classier, and almost exclusively created by other women. Story-based arousal, actual characters, usually a slow burn romance. And then the beast with two backs, a stark contrast to things like Jugs and Beaver Hunt. From a commercial point of view, it's understandable that men would be more catered for than women. But there were always signs that given the right conditions, the attention and the money could shift positions. So even though I'm alone in a cave with a crazy alien and we just mutually had an angry masturbation fest, I drift off to sleep. 50 Shades of Grey, which spawned as self-published Twilight fan fiction in 2011, sold more copies on Amazon than any of the Harry Potter novels, igniting a huge interest in erotic literature. The market has changed. What we've witnessed over the last 10 or 15 years is the perfect storm of accessibility, technology, and demand. No more going to the specialist bookstore in disguise or getting a plain brown paper package through the post. Erogenous storytelling had a shop window, and self-publishing with potentially no manufacturing, editing, or agent costs gave erotic literature the tools to open the floodgates to a menagerie of quirks and tastes. This situation is very similar to what happened during the home video boom of the 1980s, where the boundaries of normal porn were pushed to extreme and peculiar places. Instead of women being presented as, oh God, I hope I get this right, instead of women being presented as subjects of pleasure, they're now more commonly seen as objects of desire. And as far as I can tell, that's the big difference between the male and female gaze. Then along comes Bigfoot porn, monster erotica. Granted, there have been publications depicting Sasquatch romance in the past, but nothing on this scale. Come in, Amy said, with emphasis on the word come. At its core, the not-so-subtle subtext of Bigfoot porn seems to be all about the super dominant alpha male ravaging the helpless damsel. Power sex. I'm so out of my depth here. But the darker undertones are, darker than having sex with a mythical beast. The darker undertones are this borderline consensual survival sex? I think I'm searching for answers. Why is a certain demographic attracted to this very particular type of sexual encounter? And why is a 50-year-old married man asking that question on camera? Regardless of why it even exists, this corner of the internet is a big deal. And it manifests in many different ways. Bigfoot, tentacles, polar bears, fairy tale creatures, and of course, big blue horny aliens. I shove at his hands, but he's so much stronger than me and determined. He keeps my thighs pried apart, and I can't help but notice that his hand is enormous, like a baseball glove. Look, look, look. A Bigfoot scat, and this one's quite fresh, so I think we've only just missed him.
That's dog shit.
Well, the untrained eye would say that, but I can see traces of the Bigfoot diet if you look really, really closely.
What do they eat?
Dog food. Mainly dog food. In 2015, Ruby Dixon unleashed Ice Planet Barbarians onto the world. It started off like all the other self-published books, a few sales on Amazon, the odd book review. It was a very minor curiosity. But after a couple of years, curiosity morphed into notoriety. Notoriety became genuine success, and success was promoted into full-blown viral sensation. It's all BookTok's fault. BookTok is the reading community corner of TikTok. Old people are watching, I have to explain these things. Sales went through the roof, and not just for this kind of smut, for books in general. On Amazon, the world's biggest bookseller, For a week over the summer of 2021, Ice Planet Barbarians was the 5th best-selling book in the world. Real verified data is quite hard to come by, but just as an example of the potential rewards at stake here, it was reported that Virginia Wade, no, not the former tennis player, not the last British woman to win Wimbledon, not that Virginia Wade, at least I don't think it's her anyway, the author of Come for Bigfoot, that Virginia Wade, earned about $30,000 a month through Kindle Direct. So there you go. You want to be rich? Write a 16-book series about, well, on a week-long outing in Mount Hood National Forest, what begins as a flirty, fun-filled trip soon turns into a nightmare when an ape-like creature kidnaps a group of teen girls with the purpose of procreating with them. Easy money. The hype overflowed onto YouTube, the real headquarters for homemade online book reviews. You can't call yourself a serious booktuber if you haven't made a video called I read Ice Planet Barbarians, so you don't have to. And this is where my confusion is compounded. I've spent most of this video addressing the fact that this isn't aimed at me, but I kind of get the attraction. That's okay. However, I also assumed that the fandom is tongue-in-cheek. It's a very cheap thrill, but we're all in on the joke together, right? Apparently not. There is no shortage of articles, reviews, videos analysing this type of content through very different colour glasses. Are these books really about embracing what we have in common rather than our differences? I am human. You have a big blue sack, but I can see beyond that big blue sack. Readers are actually appreciating the world building and the clash of cultures that can only exist in a science fiction novel based on an alien planet. I swear, I've watched reviews that if I were to just edit out all the on-the-nose references to Bigfoot and just skipped over all the penetration, it would sound just like an Ursula Le Guin book review. Le Guin would have loved this stuff. So far from being a flash-in-the-pan social media gimmick that will very quickly become yesterday's news, I think this sub-genre is hanging around for a while, and it's probably here to stay. Success, attention, and money breeds a movement. People copy and expand on the ideas of others. And if you thought having sex with a big blue alien or a man-ape was weird, consider creamed by cave creatures, forced to birth the gargoyle's clutch, and your mum's favourite, Morning Glory Milking Farm. The large, stiff object slid between her thighs and prodded at her vagina. Whatever it was thick and hard and shaped like a parsnip with a golf ball taped to the end. I wrote that one. Ah, this is perfect. Come here, get this. This clearing is where the Bigfoot bed down for the night. On this side is what they would use as a bedroom. On the other side of this tree limb, obviously, this is where they prepare food, on that tree stump, most likely. And this big bit over here, this clearing, is the communal area. Now, if we were to come back after dark and lay down in like a spooning configuration among the ferns in the dark, we would probably see them. Are you up for that with me tonight?
No.